Andy, my dude, have you heard of the magical website builder known as Squarespace?
Ugh, not another Squarespace ad. I feel like every podcast is sponsored by them.
Hey, don't knock it till you try it. Yes, okay, it is overhyped, but actually it lives up to the hype. Squarespace is like a website fairy godmother. With a click of a button, your site transforms into a beautiful masterpiece.
A website fairy godmother? That sounds interesting. What makes it so magical?
Well, for starters, those slick templates make anyone look like a professional web designer. Pick one, customize the colors and fonts to match your brand, and voila. Plus, the drag and drop fluid engine is so easy, your grandma could build a site on Squarespace.
Well, she did knit me a lovely scarf last Christmas. Maybe website design is next.
Exactly. And when you're ready to sell your Nana's handmade scarves online, Squarespace has built-in e-commerce. Add a store with one click. Get flexible payment options. Then watch those sales roll in. And when she wants to teach others her steezy scarf skills, Squarespace's new courses feature is just the ticket. Nana can set up her curriculum and enrollments and payments in a snap and become the next e-knitting influencer.
Oh, wow, you really sold me with the grandma angle. Sign me up for that free trial.
Just go to thenextreel.com/Squarespace and transform your site into a beautiful Squarespace masterpiece.
Well, thanks, Pete. Even though it's overhyped, Squarespace actually sounds perfect for Nana's site's needs. Appreciate the warning on the ads, though. I'll brace myself next time I listen to a podcast.
Anytime. Let me know if you need any help getting that site up and running. Andy, can you believe we've almost hit 700 episodes of The Next Reel?
I know, it's crazy. And with all the other episodes in our family of podcasts, we are well over 1,200 episodes of movie conversation. It's really pretty amazing that we've gotten to have these in-depth movie chats every week for over a decade now.
And we couldn't have done it without our loyal community of film fans. Their support over the years has meant so much.
For sure. That reminds me, we should give the merch store a shout out. Buying shirts from thenextreel.com/merch is a great way listeners can continue to support the show. Plus, they get to sport our great designs.
Absolutely. I think sometimes folks forget we have a variety of shirts, mugs, phone cases, and more available. In fact, a great place to start is with a shirt sporting the Next Reel's logo.
We also have that classic Fast Times Spicoli Surf School tee, or the weirdly popular Rusty's European Tour shirt.
The one from National Lampoon's European Vacation. Why is that so popular?
Search me, but we have sold a ridiculous number of those. I guess there are a lot of Rustys taking trips to Europe?
We're always adding new designs based on movies we've covered, like our brand new design for a streetcar named Desire, featuring a streetcar named Desire. So if you want to rep your love of TNR and films, head to thenextreel.com/merch.
Every purchase helps us continue to have these weekly in-depth conversations. So visit thenextreel.com/merch today.
And as always, thanks for listening and being a part of the Next Reel community. We've got lots more great movie chats coming your way. I'm Pete Wright.
And I'm Andy Nelson.
Welcome to The Next Reel. When the movie ends,
our conversation begins.
In just a matter of seconds, you're going to hear a classic episode of this show from back in the day when we called ourselves Movies We Like.
It took us a while to settle into the show's format, so you'll notice some differences as you listen to these episodes. For instance, it takes us a bit of time to actually get into the conversation about the movie. Things like that.
But we're still proud of the conversations about the movies themselves, and we think they're worth keeping in the library.
So enjoy these episodes from our back catalog. And you can become part of our Discord community, learn more about the show, and find out how you can become a supporting member at thenextreel.com.
So thank you, everybody, for downloading and listening to The Next Reel. We appreciate your time and attention, and we hope you enjoy the show. What's your favorite Burt Reynolds movie? Go.
The only one I can think of is The Best Little Whorehouse in Texas, which I've never even seen. How sad is that?
The dude has 176 credits, and you can think of the one movie that you haven't seen.
Paternity.
Oh my God, you're terrible. God, if you see, this is the thing. If you were a Burt Reynolds movie, you'd be like Cannonball Run 2.
There you go. All dogs go to heaven.
Jesus.
Oh, I'm just not.
Man.
I know.
Hooper? Anything? You haven't seen Hooper?
Mr. Hooper? He played Mr. Hooper?
Sonny Hooper.
Hi, Ernie.
Oh, Hooper was great. Hooper was great. Way underappreciated, that film. Hooper. Sonny Hooper. That was one of my favorites.
How are you, Ernie?
You're not even paying attention to me.
Why are we talking about Burt Reynolds?
I don't know.
Besides, he's in the news this week.
Because he's bankrupt?
Because he's bankrupt, yes.
Why do you like to pick at other people's pain?
Well, he's advertising it.
That's the worst.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know why I started. Yeah, right. Sure you do.
He was in Boogie Nights.
Exactly. That's actually where I expected you to go, but
and
you didn't.
Striptease.
Yeah. Yeah. I tend to celebrate the earlier, what I call the Reynolds canon. Mm. Not these off blacklist titles from later.
I like Paternity. There were like some from my childhood that I swear I saw way too many times, especially probably for as young as I was. I shouldn't have been watching them.
Yeah.
And it's like Paternity, and what was the other one? Gosh, I can't remember. Some Best Friends or one of those. I don't know.
That sounds horrible. I remember it, but I don't remember anything about it. It just sounds horrible.
Yeah. There were some bad ones.
People don't make movies called Best Friends anymore. Hey, speaking of Hooper, you know who was in Hooper?
Who?
Jan Michael Vincent.
Oh, sweet.
Hey, is Sharknado 2 out yet? Have you seen it?
It came out yesterday.
Did you see it?
I did not see it.
I didn't either.
I haven't seen the first one. I can't watch the second one until I've seen the first.
They're the same. They're the same. It's the same movie. I don't just watch. It's just a stream of shark consciousness.
Yes.
Oh man, I heard a review. Critic was talking about it, and this line that she said, "How can you fail to appreciate like lines like this? It's okay. I know you're scared because they're sharks, and sharks are scary." Like, that's some great writing.
Wow. Did they actually have like the actors write their own lines?
Yeah. Oh, goodness, that's funny. Hey, have you seen it? Speaking of interesting shows, Quick Draw on Hulu. It's a Hulu Plus show. Have you seen this, Quick Draw?
No.
I may be speaking out of school on this show. I don't know. I ended up getting I don't know, it was a clout perk, I think. They say when you schmooze on social media enough, you start getting perks. And so I got this perk on Clout, and it said, hey, you should watch Quick Draw on Hulu and see what you think. So season 2 is coming out, and I'd never really given much thought to Quick Draw, but it turns out Quick Draw it's kind of a funny show, and it is an entirely improvised half-hour comedy. It's a Western. This Harvard law grad becomes the sheriff in this little tiny town, Great Bend, Kansas, in 1875, and it's like improvised.
Interesting.
It's totally worth checking out.
An improvised period comedy.
An improvised period comedy. And it sort of blows me away. Like, you watch a couple of episodes of it, and the fact that it holds together and gets, like, you can, if you start from episode 1, season 1, and watch through 3 or 4 episodes, you can actually feel the actors getting better. It's and so by season 2, episode 1, which was my clout perk, it's a tight little comedy show. I was really into it. I'm having a good time with it.
Oh, interesting.
You heard it here second. Hey everybody, thanks for joining us. It's The Next Reel. It's we spoil movies. I'm Pete Wright. There's Andy Nelson.
Yo.
And we're gonna talk about a fine Terry Gilliam film tonight. But before we do that, we want you to head over to thenextreel.com. You can read the blog stylings of the goodly, kindly Steve Sarmento. You can jump into the conversation with us on Facebook.com/thenextreel or Twitter.com/thenextwheel. The next wheel. Next reel.
Elmer Fudd is on the show tonight.
Truly. That Eric Idle. That's awesome, right?
That is pretty cool.
I'm telling you, sometimes, they reach out of the darkness and reach out to us on Twitter and say something fantastic. That was pretty great. And I think that's
more people should be following us.
More
on Twitter
people should be
following. They can read along.
That's right. They would know. Let me just say this. The other thing to say, and this always shocks me because I don't hang out on Pinterest, but when I go to Pinterest for our page, I'm constantly blown away by the number of awesome posters that you are putting up there.
There are a lot. And
oh my God.
The thing I love about movie posters nowadays is it's not just the standard studio posters that are always appearing, but you have so many fantastic just artists doing their own interpretations of posters, and so it's really fun just to kind of look and see what posters are out there these days.
They are great. I have a ball every time I look at them. So if you head over to The Next Reel or Pinterest.com/The Next Reel, we have poster collections. We have a poster collection for The Next Reel and the film board, so you can see all of the recent Planet of the Apes. And then just this collection of amazing movie posters that you've put together, and so it is great. But that Next Reel poster collection is over 1,000 movie posters.
That's a lot of posters.
It is stunning. It is great, and the Munchausen posters in particular are really quite striking. The one they used for the theatrical release is lame. It's true, and this I think goes for a lot of films, but it's really lame by comparison.
Yeah. You get so many more interesting posters from other countries, or just different kind of the B styles that end up out there, or like I said, all these interesting ones that people are making now. So lots of fun stuff.
Really good stuff.
Yeah.
The Buttle Tuttle Brazil poster is one of my favorite ones.
Oh yes,
the red one. Yeah. So go check that out. Andy, tell me, do we have an update from Andy versus the People? # guess the movie. # Pony Prize.
You bet we do.
How'd you do this week?
This was a good week, despite being maybe potentially poorly timed with the news.
Oh.
But, one doesn't always think about these things. So I picked Munich, Steven Spielberg's film from 2005, which I think is one of his great films. And it was a really challenging film for people to nail, and it was right up to the wire as the last image that I posted, and good old Alexander C. Curran,
he
figured it out, finally threw the guess out there, and he was right. So he is entered to win our Pony Prize.
Nice.
Indeed.
I like Hunt Thug Nasty came in close with Ninja Assassin.
He almost deserves like a second place for that.
I know, right? What a great game! What a great game! Yeah. Do you have your movie picked out for this week? Are you ready to go? You do already.
Uh-huh. Right. Yeah, I don't have the images. I got to start picking images tonight, but I'll get it sorted very quickly.
That's another one. You head over to Instagram.com/The Next Reel, and you can play along with the Guess the Movie Pony Prize. And there you go.
Absolutely.
All right. Let's do trailers. I'm going to go first, Andy Nelson.
All right. Just because you're so excited?
Is that what that is? Is that what that sound is on my face? Let me tell you, I am excited. I didn't realize how excited I was about this film until I saw the trailer. Like, I knew it was coming. I knew it was out there. That's fine. But then I saw the trailer, and I was taken back. We're doing Fury Road this week. First trailer came out. And this was a hell of a week for trailers with Comic-Con. And, oh, my goodness, there was a lot to choose from. But the Fury Road trailer came out, and I'm telling you, even though we don't see a whole lot of Tom Hardy in this film, this looks gruesome.
I love the concept that they have with the story for this one, that basically it's just a road trip from one end to the other, and it's just them constantly moving, and it's just a story as on the road going along this whole journey, which I think is pretty fun.
It never stops. Well, it rarely stops. I think there are sequences in here where you see it stop, mostly as they tie each other up to cars and then start driving again. But Tom Hardy, at least from behind, looks great. It's a George Miller joint. It feels just like Mad Max. I mean, this takes me right back into canon. This was great.
Yeah, it's very exciting. You're right. Tom Hardy, you don't see a whole lot of him, or when you do, it seems like he's kind of strapped to the car a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot of that, tied up, getting tattooed.
Yeah. So, but the characters, like, they just all have a great look, and I'm hoping that he can pull off that grittiness. I mean, just from the stories of the shoot for this, it sounds like it was kind of its own little hell for a lot of the people involved. And so I have a feeling that the feeling of that grittiness is really going to come through, and it's not going to feel just like a glossy Hollywood production. Totally. It certainly doesn't from the trailer.
Totally. Absolutely agree with that. It's directed by George Miller, written by Nick Lathouris, Brendan McCarthy, and George Miller, and stars Tom Hardy, Charlize Theron, who, man, they can sure mess her up.
And she cut her arm off for this.
Right? That's commitment.
It sure is.
Rosie Huntington Whiteley. Which is, I believe, she was Rosie was in Transformers 4, right? Or Transformers 3, right? She was in Dark of the Moon. She replaced, what's her name? I think that's her only other credit. Like, that's the only other. She's a model and has, she's like a Victoria's Secret model or something. And then Zoe Kravitz is in it. And, I only bring her up because she was one I liked in Divergent.
Right.
So, anyway, big cast, lots of driving, and it comes out in May 15th, 2015. So we got just over a year, or under a year.
And we already have that on our list for shows next year.
Yeah, because we're doing the whole thing, right?
Yep, we're going to do all 4 movies.
Love it.
Quite excited.
We'll be there.
Well, my movie is a little bit of a change from yours. It is called Hector and the Search for Happiness, which, I saw this trailer, and stories like this just, they always hit home with me. And I just love the idea. I love the look and the feel of the film. It has Simon Pegg, who I just love, plus Rosamund Pike, who is very easy to fall in love with, and Stellan Skarsgård, and Jean Reno, and Toni Collette, and Christopher Plummer. I mean, it's got this fantastic cast, and it's about this guy, Hector, who's just kind of like stuck in a rut as a psychiatrist, not sure what he's doing with his life, and decides he has to go on the road and figure out what is happiness. And it rings that bell of, that potentially saccharine story, but one that just kind of is just such a honest feel-good sort of story that it just sucks me in. And the trailer, just everything about it just makes me happy. And so, I found my happiness already with the trailer for Hector and the Search for Happiness. How's that?
I love it. It feels really, it feels very well-rounded to me. What I like most about this is almost an answer in terms of a cinematic call and answer exercise to Simon Pegg's A Fantastic Fear of Everything. It's like he's doing a little bit of a cleansing,
right? He is.
Coming into this one. So I think it's great, and it does. It looks very sweet, and you're right. It does hit home, and I think this goes back to Men of a Certain Age problems, right? It's this whole idea of, what a great series this and Secret Life of Walter Mitty, and these films of trying to figure out what it is we're doing here. Why do we exist in this space? And I really look forward to it. When does it hit?
September 19th.
All right.
Yeah, directed by Peter Chelsom, who last brought us Hannah Montana the movie. I don't know if that's
so. There's that.
Oh yeah, I mean, if you look at his credits, you may think, well, maybe I shouldn't go watch this movie. Town and Country, Serendipity, Shall We Dance?
Yeah.
Let's just close his.
Yeah, right.
We don't need to see his filmography.
You know who else is in this? Is Rosamund Pike.
Oh yeah.
And I feel like I've 'cause this is back on me on Gone Girl. Have you read that yet?
I still haven't.
Oh man, I need somebody to talk about it with. So would you hurry up?
Well, I'm busy watching Game of Thrones finally, so.
You can do. You have permission to continue.
Thank
Continue right ahead. Good. Let's. I think we need to go get the Grail.
Okay, Jack, we're on the air in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hey, it's Monday morning, and I'm Jack Lucas.
In the world of talk radio, Jack Lucas was king.
Look, I said I want an offer they can forget it.
To stay on top, he did whatever he had to.
Forgive me!
But one day, Jack went too far.
It was Mr. Lucas's offhand remark that seemed to have fatal impact on Mr. Melnick.
No matter what I have, it feels like I have nothing.
Yo, what's going on?
And just when he was about to give up on his own life, he stumbled into Perry's.
Unhand that degenerate and remove your presence! I like New York in June. How about you? You know who I am?
A hood ornament.
No. I'm a knight on a special quest.
A quest.
And I need help.
Jack has to do something he's never done before.
Isn't she a vision? I'm deeply smitten.
Help someone else.
I thought that if I could get him this girl that he loves, things would change for me.
Let's do it right here. Let's go to that place of splendor in the grand.
And this is Perry. Perry.
Perry.
No, just Perry.
Ah, like Moses.
I think they were made for each other. Scary, but true.
Sometimes, to find yourself,
I'm the janitor of God. You find some pretty wonderful things in the trash.
you have to risk it all.
Bingo!
I'm not doing that.
Robin Williams, Jeff Bridges, The Fisher King.
I love this guy!
Hug me in public again.
All right, Andrew, here we are. We're continuing our Terry Gilliam series with 1991's film The Fisher King, written by Richard LaGravenese and directed by Terry the Man Gilliam, starring Robin Williams, Jeff Bridges, Mercedes Ruehl, Amanda Plummer, and Michael Jeter. What do you think?
I love it.
Do you?
I do.
Do you love it the most?
Nope.
Okay. Do you love it the second most?
Yes, I think so. I'm curious to see where 12 Monkeys ends up falling next week.
I know.
Because, I forget how good all these movies are. And I hadn't seen Fisher King in years because I have it on stinking Laserdisc, the Criterion Laserdisc. And
That's like a joke.
It really is. It is. And I actually I broke down and actually got the Blu-ray to watch it because I can't even plug my Laserdisc player into my modern televisions because they're all component and I only have a composite out of the laser.
Are you kidding?
So, I listened to the commentary, but the picture was just like this fuzzy black and white thing. It was horrible. So
that is such a cruel, ironic joke. That's what that was.
Oh, yeah. So come on, Criterion, get your butt in gear and get it out there.
I remember for so many years, you with your laser discs collecting for time immemorial.
Yeah.
That day has come, my friend. The day of reckoning.
Yes, it has.
Okay. That's awesome. Can I want to read you a paragraph. It's a moderately long paragraph.
Okay.
And I just want to see what you think. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but just this. The Fisher King is a disorganized, rambling, and eccentric movie that contains some moments of truth, some moments of humor, and many moments of digression. The filmmakers are nothing if not generous. We get urban grit, showbiz angst, 2 love affairs, the Holy Grail, the homeless, an action sequence, a dance sequence, and an apocalyptic figure on a horse who rides through Central Park with flames shooting from his head. Even with such excess, at 137 minutes, the film shows signs of having been pruned of some of its quiet spots. Or did they intend to have all those scenes back-to-back in which people shout at each other? The film stars Jeff Bridges as Jack, a radio talk show host whose unbalanced listener goes on a shooting spree, apparently following Jack's advice. Jack is devastated and quits his job and drops into a long alcoholic reverie, only to be redeemed by Perry, Robin Williams, a homeless man who is convinced the Holy Grail is in the possession of a Manhattan billionaire, and together they can find it. The screenplay by Richard LaGravenese seems to have been constructed like an airliner with fail-safe redundancy. You know what that is?
I don't know what that is.
That is a 2-star review from the Ebert.
Wow.
2 stars he gave this movie.
What a stinker.
I was driven to a cinematic rage when I read this. I was so frustrated because it, and I'm sure we're going to get comments about people who are far more maybe pragmatic and rational about this film than I am. But I really love this film. I really do. And I found myself, this is the first time in a long time that I've read an Ebert review that disagreed with me, and I felt like he is totally wrong. Like he's just wrong. I do have some points of agreement, or maybe one point of agreement in his review, which we'll talk about. But generally, I was very frustrated by that. I think this movie is really very strong, and I think it's strong for a number of reasons. First of all, it dumps so much of it dumps just enough of the fantastic coming off of of Gilliam's last 3 movies, that it feels like we get more of a sensibility of Terry Gilliam, the grown-up. And that Terry Gilliam is capable of devising relationships that have a much more natural or intrinsic emotional connection. And once we have that emotional connection cemented, I think we go along with anything. And he has a lot more to be able to play with us. And I think I think between these, particularly the 4 major characters, Robin Williams, Jeff Bridges, and Amanda Plummer, and Mercedes Ruehl, we have an incredibly, beautifully tight emotional foursome that plays so well on screen that I'll follow them anywhere.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think the film was cast perfectly. I think those 4 people are so solid in their roles here that it's just like everything about them feels right in all ways. And I love watching the 4 of them interact in whatever, 2 of them together or all 4 of them, however it is. They're just all I think, electric in their roles and perfect. And I think, I think you're right about this is really a chance for Terry Gilliam to step back from the extravagant sets. And I think he specifically ended up picking this script because of that, finding something that was not so big and elaborate and full of special effects, but something that was more character driven and gave him more of an opportunity to show people that, or show Hollywood in a large sense, that he could do stuff that, came in on budget, that other people had written, that, still made money and succeeded at the box office, and it was a quality film. And, but also just to show that he can really tap into these characters. I think he had been labeled so much up to this point as a filmmaker who can make pretty pictures but doesn't really focus so much on the characters. And I think that I think there's a lot of interesting stuff going on with the characters in his previous films, but this one I think is the film where he really found the right way to tap into the personas of these 4 characters. And I mean, obviously the Richard's script helps tremendously, but I think Terry found the right way to build the scenes with these characters and to let them live these roles. And I mean, I think a perfect example is the moment where everything is going right for Jack, and he kind of got Perry hooked up with Lydia. Everything seems like it's going good. And then he has this moment where he has this conversation with Anne about, just having some time apart and splitting up. And it's this incredibly powerful scene. The way that it's written is beautiful, but the way that Terry chose to shoot that is really just like, if you watch that scene, the vast majority of it is one shot. This shot of just them having a conversation, and he knows when to allow his two actors to have time to work together and just develop this scene in one single shot, and they know how to play it. And then he also knows where to cut out of that and to use that as a transition in the emotional story. And it's fantastic filmmaking, and he really proves here that he can do more than just these extravagant, fantastical films.
I that is such a terrific example, that sequence. And credit to LaGravenese too, that that sequence, in spite of all of the and no bones about it, Jeff Bridges is a dude that can play damaged. You know what I mean? He can channel damaged better than many others actors on screen, and yet. That sequence of him turning his life around and watching the ego take over was such a beautiful pivot to this guy that you think has learned the lessons. You think he's there, he's arrived, he's learned the lessons, and then he torpedoes it himself. Yeah. He does this emotional seppuku by turning on the one person who stuck by him all along. And yet that sequence, as straight as Gilliam played that sequence visually, one of the things that I really am drawn to is how he is capable, just at the flick of a switch, he's capable of using the actors as fantastic set pieces by the way he portrays them visually. You notice, when he needs to get this sense of compression, he goes back to that tried old super wide angle close-up thing that he does. There's this great sequence where where Lydia is trying to escape. She's had her nails done and she's a little tipsy, and she's on their floor and she tries to crawl into the corner, and that sequence is just so beautiful because it goes that super wide angle where you see the whole apartment and her face just gets so big, and it draws me back to Brazil. It draws me back to Munchausen. It draws me back to to the Terry Gilliam I know from The Fantastic, and yet he's doing so in playing with the people on stage without the fantastic sets and the fantasy. He's doing so in a way that I think really adds a visual texture to this film that makes it that much more appealing to me.
Yeah, and then with that, I think he also knows, he and Richard know the right way to move from the fantastical elements like the Red Knight, and kind of folding that in and out of the story, so it doesn't feel over the top, in your face, hey, this is a fantasy set in New York sort of thing. It all works in the context of the story, and it really just takes you into the psyche of Perry, this damaged man. And even toward the end, when Jack kind of takes Perry's role essentially, and to go into this castle and retrieve the Grail, and he starts hearing the horses, and he sees Edmund coming up the stairs with the gun and everything, and he really kind of gets into his head. It plays well with that psyche, but it keeps that beautiful Gilliam fantastical touch that he has. But it fits in a context in the film that still makes it work in the real world.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Because we establish through his, just back to the world building, we establish that the fantasy is reality for Perry, and that's like our entree into being able to see things like the Red Knight, and establishes a context for it. So when it pivots at the end and Bridges starts to see those, we've already established that it's approved. This is approved behavior, cinematic behavior. It doesn't take us out of the context of the film. I think that's a really elegant manipulation.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
We need to talk a little bit about Robin Williams.
Sure.
Because in so many ways, I think this is this is one of those parts that he was meant to play, you know? I see him in this role, and he takes such ownership of it. And I say that with the caveat that there were just a few sequences where, and it's really the Perry who is the homeless vigilante, right? When he's got his shield out and he's beating up the guys who are beating up homeless guys, where he becomes the unrestrained comedian, Robin Williams. Do you get that feeling?
Yeah, I mean, he inevitably that happens. I mean, you even get a little bit of that in Dead Poets Society, where, you know, when he's kind of talking to his class, and all of a sudden you kind of get that Robin Williams comedy coming out, you know, when he's John Wayne, whatever, and that definitely spills out here, and that's a perfect point where you really see it is when he confronts those thugs as they're getting ready to set Jack on fire. And it really comes across. I think he does better here at kind of making it fit the character a little more.
Do you really? You know, on that I disagree. I don't feel it. Go ahead. Finish your point.
Well, no, is it that particular scene?
Yeah, I think there are two of them, right? There are the two sequences where he's out there, and one he gets sliced up. But it's that first sequence when he's rescuing Jack, and that's just it ends up being over the top Robin Williams, and I think it would be okay if it wasn't Robin Williams, because Robin Williams is so noted for that behavior, right? For that specific behavior. In Dead Poets Society, I never felt like I was out of the character. I never got that feeling. I felt like he was absolutely appropriate doing what he was doing in front of that class, right? And so he was just he was a terrific performer in those films. And here it's a little bit unrestrained, and it takes me out of the film. That's the only place in the film that I felt like I'm just not in it. It's too Robin Williams. And this is in contrast to after the rescue that he takes him back to his domicile and is bringing Jeff Bridges back to health by letting him rest and feeding him rancid fruit pies. And I think that's some of his best work in the film.
Well, and I guess I will agree with you. I mean, I guess I'm used to it. Maybe is what's happened, and I've kind of gotten used to that scene, that whole sequence of him saving him. And I think part of that is the script, and part of that is Robin, because some of that is just kind of this crazy. You know, we're being introduced to this very strange world of the homeless, right? Where, you know, the old Gandalf-looking guy stands up and screams suddenly, and Robin stands up and screams with him, and then they greet each other. And it's this weird world that, you know, it's like, okay, that doesn't necessarily strike me as normal, even in the world of the homeless. So I don't know. To me, it seems like part of that is just the way all of that's written. Because if you look at Perry, for the most part, I mean, he does seem kind of a little mousier, you know, like after, like when he, like you said, when Jack wakes up and he's in Perry's basement, or in that kind of that little basement place where Perry's kind of made a nest for himself, he seems a lot mousier. And yes, he kind of goes after Lydia and all that sort of stuff and has this quest. And he's, you know, calls himself a knight, but he always seems mousier. And that beginning when he first appears, he does come off as a much stronger character and a kind of a crazier character. Again, I fault a lot of that with kind of just the way that the script is, because it is a very over-the-top sequence.
Well, and I don't know, was that scripted? Was all of his stuff scripted, or did they do you know if was it part of the commentary that they tell you anything about what Williams was kind of allowed to do?
There was some improv, but I don't know how much of it was specific scenes. If anything, there were some lines and stuff like that were improv. But I mean, my sense is that this scene was in the script and they were shooting it. And if anything, I mean, they did do some rehearsals. So usually the improv comes out in rehearsals and then they kind of build it into the script.
Right.
So if anything, it may have been added into the scene, but the scene would already have been there.
Well, yeah. So here's the problem that I have with it, right? In terms of his journey, right, Perry's journey.
Yep.
He was the yuppie with his wife in the yuppie restaurant, all ego and not noticing the world around him, right? That's the message that we got by the characterization of the restaurant and by Jack's initial monologue, when he essentially called out us or them to his listener. And Perry's shock takes him to a place where he becomes the humble protector, right? Everything in the film, except for his vigilantism, is him being incredibly humble as a protector, right, of those around him. And he takes Jack on in that way. And that's why, for me, so early in the film, to see him, to be introduced to him in such a gregarious fashion is something that I feel is out of context. And that's one of the reasons I think it struck me sideways. It didn't feel, that's the only part that didn't feel part of the character, because of his journey that I was already sort of, and now I have to, I have to realize I have the benefit of hindsight, because we, of course, don't learn all of this until a flashback much later in the film.
Right.
But that's why it doesn't end up making sense to me on repeat viewings.
No, and I can see that. I guess I'm used to it now, like I said, so it doesn't bother me so much. But you're right, in context of the humble protector. Certainly the protector is there, but he is so not humble in that particular rescue.
Right. And because when he plays that humble character, he's just so great.
Yeah.
His relationship, oh my goodness. The meeting, the following, the stalking of Amanda Plummer is precious. It's precious.
Yeah, he comes across so delicately. And that's what I love about him as Perry, is all of that, like the little movements that he does as he's watching her, and that the beautiful waltz that Gilliam fashioned in the train station is just, I mean, it blew me away then, and it still blows me away every time I see it. It's just such an amazing way to kind of portray this love that someone feels for somebody, but it creates just this delicate character of Perry that is. He's so fragile, and the way that he sees love and the way that he sees beauty in the world is fragile, and he plays that character to a T through the rest of the film.
Yeah, absolutely. That sequence, the sequence in Grand Central, really is it's a work of art.
Yeah.
And the staging of it, so getting, realizing that they were closing Grand Central Station. I don't know, I sure would love you to fill in some of the, from the commentary. I watched a brief video of Gilliam talking about it, and he the way he characterized it was that it was, it was amazingly quick, and that as Plummer and Williams are walking through these waltzers, like the first train is arriving of the morning and people are starting to get off the train as these people are dancing. But the way he talks about it, I thought was really special, saying, it's New York, and these people look out and see what's going on in Grand Central Station, and they just wanted to jump in. Of course that's what they would see when they get off the train station in Grand Central. Of course they would see hundreds of people waltzing.
Right.
And that felt very Gilliam to me. That felt like a very natural way to talk about it.
Well, and they were trying to shoot the scene where it was going to be done totally differently. It was going to have an African-American woman, like a homeless woman, who's going to be singing this beautiful gospel kind of singing, and it was all going to be set to her, but it just wasn't working at all, and they were trying it, and Gilliam was up in the top just looking at kind of the choreography of how people were moving, and he just kind of threw the idea out there and was just like, wouldn't it be great if all those people just kind of hooked up with the person next to them and they all started waltzing around? And as soon as he said it, he instantly dismissed it because he's like, well, I'm not making a crazy off the wall Terry Gilliam film. And all of his crew's like, oh my god, that's genius. We got to do that. That's perfect. And he's just like, no. That's over the top. That's just going to turn this wonderful story into just a silly Gilliam film. But they convinced him, and he's just like, okay. And so luckily they did, because it is one of those just beautiful moments that just captures the internal thoughts of this character in one of the most beautiful ways. And it was, and if you see it on the wide shot, you can see that they didn't even have enough people. They actually had to capture this group of people waltzing on one side and then the other and then the other, and then just kind of move them around. And you can see it because some of them are kind of ghostly figures because they had to overlay the film, and so it made it look ghostly. But even that gives it a feel of this kind of otherworldliness that I think fits really nicely with it.
I could not agree more. It made me think of a flash mob, I mean, I had to start looking up. I wanted to see if there was any sort of credit to this sequence in Grand Central as a precursor to the first flash mob.
Oh, right.
You see these kind of random comic events, or look, suddenly everybody's singing the same song, kind of a thing. And I found no connection, but I feel like it is owed some sort of homage, because it feels like exactly the sort of performance art that was then later popularized.
Well, and I did see something, and I don't know if this is true. Any of our listeners in New York could probably tell us whether it's true or not, but I read somewhere that since this film came out, they actually do this on New Year's every year now, where a group of people go into Grand Central Station and actually do a waltz in there.
Oh, that's fantastic. I did not know that. The Grand Central Waltz.
Yeah.
Yes. Look
Pretty
at that. Several years, a waltz was held at Grand Central Terminal in New York on New Year's Eve. This was inspired by the classic scene in The Fisher King. Apparently, I'm not sure that it's still going on today.
But it did go on for a while.
But it did go on for some time.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting if anybody knows, if anybody has attended the waltz. It doesn't sound like it took on like Thriller dance sort of stamina.
So they're not doing it in prisons in Indonesia?
No, waltzing in prisons in Indonesia, no. No, that is the truth. All right. Mercedes Ruehl.
I love her in this, and she's one of those people who's in so much stuff. Like I'm like, what is she doing? Because I haven't seen her in ages, and I was like, wow, she hasn't stopped. She's just busy. But I like a lot of TV movies and TV series and things that I just haven't seen at all. So she's definitely busy. But she won an Oscar for this. I mean, for Pete's sake, you'd think that it would really take off and give her lots of great stuff, but it hasn't. At least cinematically, it certainly has kept her busy, though.
Yeah. She is well deserved for the win in this. But I couldn't remember who. I didn't look up. Did you look who she was running against in '91?
I did. She was up against Diane Ladd in Rambling Rose, Juliette Lewis in Cape Fear, Kate Nelligan in The Prince of Tides, and Jessica Tandy in Fried Green Tomatoes.
Oh, yeah, no contest.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't seen all of those, but I think I've seen all but one, actually. Yeah. So,
wait, let me guess. What was the one I can't remember?
Rambling Rose?
Yeah, that's the one.
That's the one, yeah. Never saw that one.
I haven't seen that one either. Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure she was better than that.
That's right. Yeah. That's right.
She is. I think as I think about this film kind of collapsing in on its own identity. As these guys go into this world of the fantastic, and they're going to go find the Holy Grail, and oh my goodness, and then I just have to kind of picture her, and she serves as the ultimate sort of grounding rod for this film. She grounds it in humanity, I think, and she plays so honestly.
Well, and that's what I love about the writing is that just the writing itself is so honest, and she brings this honesty to that role, and that it needed somebody to play it so honestly because it's written so honestly. I mean, you don't see very many actresses out there, I don't think, who could pull off so well saying things like, "I am not a modern woman. If we're going to end this, let's just end this."
Yeah.
And the way she does it, it's just like, it breaks your heart, and you at the same time you're on her side. You're so frustrated with this guy who just can't get things straight.
Frustrated with him from the very beginning of their relationship. When he's reading the paper in the back office of that video store and she goes in and tries to get him to work, you can feel it. That frustration has been building. I mean, that just picking up in the middle of that of their relationship story was so powerful for me.
Yeah.
It made me feel like, I have to go apologize to my wife for anything that I have ever done, ever. Like, it's just a horrible thing to walk in on, to see him acting like that.
Yeah, and she carries that from beginning to end. I mean, even that last scene when he's just standing there and you just are with her, and she's just like, you can't do this. Can't walk in here and just stand there, she's great. She really holds her own in this, and just makes this character just so true.
Well, and again, back to LaGravenese's script, that they have such a natural arc to me, that when Jack finds something else to latch onto, and he's not thinking about himself, he becomes a much more natural person. When he's thinking about Perry and what he's doing for Perry, and he becomes so much more likable, and thus their relationship becomes so much more likable, and it ends up being kind of a tragic arc, because he's going to implode again, and she's going to be hurt again. But I love that sequence when they go out to dinner and they become a couple again.
Yeah.
And watching them at dinner, watching them kind of commiserate over the fact that neither of these two people they're out to dinner with can eat like a civilized human. It is a grotesque experience watching them try to deal with dumplings.
Oh, it's so funny.
It was really funny. It's really funny. Okay, Amanda Plummer?
I think that Terry Gilliam and Robin Williams have both said that she's perfect at playing this incredibly awkward person, and just like really just kind of clumsy and just geeky. And then all of a sudden she has this almost kind of a touch of a Renaissance angel look to her that is just kind of like hauntingly beautiful. And it's an interesting way that she can kind of go from one to the other. And she does that really well. And she's so awkward all like the first times that we see her. And then you see her walking home with Perry, and it's like you can see why he would fall in love with her. It's just, there's something in there, and that's just, it's so broken. And that monologue that she has where she's essentially breaking up before they've even kissed, as he says, it's just heartrending, because she just clearly stuff has happened in her life where she just doesn't trust anything good to happen to her again. And that scene is just so heartbreaking, and you just hear her going through that process of painting out how things are going to happen, and you just see those tears in her eyes, and you just know that something had happened, and it's really heartbreaking, and it makes you fall in love with her.
Oh, it really does. She's I don't know that I read it that same way. One of the things that I find so fascinating about her, and the complexity of what is really ultimately a fairly simple character, is they've already set up that she lives in kind of a fantasy world herself. She reads all of those trashy books, and as I'm watching her kind of deliver her monologue, and deliver it with such great depth, I couldn't help but think, I think she's in just as much of a fantasy world as Perry is, and I think she's playing out one of her romance novels, and how she knows that there's going to be sex, and then the next morning there's going to be hurt and betrayal, and then there's going to be loneliness, and because but it also gives us a sense of the great maturity that a glimpse of great maturity that she has to be able to even communicate that in a period when she's hurting.
Yeah.
So I loved it. I love what she does for the role, and how conflicted I am about her. That there are periods where, when Mercedes Ruehl, when she says, you want a character, you can be a real bitch.
Yeah, right.
That is, I totally agree. And I would not want to go out to dinner with that version of Lydia. And yet 5 minutes later to just sort of fall in love with her is magical.
It really is. Yeah, it truly is.
You've seen the image I picked out for the hero image?
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
So do you know who my favorite character in this film is?
I'm guessing it's Michael Jeter.
It's Michael Jeter. Oh, my goodness. He makes me so happy in this film.
He is great in it.
He is.
I had a dream.
He is just perfect in this film. He is every scene is just the roller coaster that he takes you on. From burying himself under the bridge so that he will be crushed by a debutante, to being pulling himself together to have the wherewithal to deliver that cabaret number on a desk in that office is just beautiful. I think he is a phenomenal talent. And was a great choice for this role.
Well, and then to that third appearance where he is outside of the office after Jack has kind of climbed back up the ladder again, and Jack dismisses him and just completely ignores him. And it creates, and that's, to the efficiency of screenwriting, that is a great example of very clean and simple subplot character arcs. You get this great relationship with Michael Jeter's character as he first meets him, befriends him, gets him to help him, and then ignores him. And you get this beautiful kind of this story arc within the story of that character. And it's heartbreaking, and that's the last we see of him. And it's just, that is so sad that that's how that relationship ends in the film. But that is the lesson that Jack needed to learn. That is kind of that final step that he has to kind of have poke him in the eye to make him realize I can't listen to this awful pitch about this TV show Home Free. I need to finish this quest.
Yeah. You got me thinking about the efficiency of screenwriting comment. Really, we get his entire storyline in, is it 4 or 5 scenes?
Yeah, it's the park when he's going to get crushed by the debutante.
Right.
Then they take him to the hospital.
Right. We have that wonderful sequence in his lap.
Right, exactly.
Right.
And then we've got the cabaret, and then we've got that last scene. It's just 4 scenes with him.
And we get our whole relationship is cemented in 4 scenes.
Yep. Yeah.
Boy, that is a great point. That is beautiful.
Yeah, it's amazing screenwriting when you can create a character that's so indelible and sticks with you long after the film is over, that only appears those 4 times in the script, but it gives you a full arc within the story of a nice subplot that works really well in the context of the story, but also is something that directly affects our protagonist. It's I think incredibly efficient. Oh. You can see why Richard LaGravenese was nominated for an Oscar for this.
Yeah, truly. That was beautiful work.
Yeah.
Who else you want to talk about?
Well, have we talked about Jeff Bridges?
Oh, well, no. I guess we haven't. A little bit about him, but his talk about a roller coaster.
Yeah, I mean, you already said earlier how good he is at just being somebody who's just crushed and just going through a very, very hard time. I think he does that so well. On the flip side, I think he is frighteningly good at playing that high level prick that you just want to punch in the face.
Yeah.
I mean, he does that so well, and like all of the beginning of the conversations, both as the shock jock on the air when he's talking to Edwin or any of the other people, or just like hanging out with his girlfriend. I mean, he's just kind of this ruthless character, and he plays that so efficiently, but you can also feel that hate, kind of, that self-loathing in there. And he's one of those actors who I've always loved. I think he can carry so much weight. And interestingly, Gilliam wasn't even considering him for the part because he just didn't seem like the sort of person at the time that could convey that sort of range in a story. And it wasn't until Gilliam saw The Fabulous Baker Boys that he's like, oh, wow, maybe he actually could do this. And that's the thing that triggered him to try to get Bridges on board. That's one of my very favorite movies, too, by the way. Fabulous Baker Boys. I don't know if I don't think we can call it a guilty pleasure. Because I haven't seen it since it probably came out. Okay, no, you've seen it. A long time, yeah. Well, it's dueling pianos. I mean, what's not to like? And Michelle Pfeiffer. Yeah, but I'm a piano nerd, So are you. You should love this movie. I'll have to watch it again. Whatever. You don't care about me. I can't help but think about, like, sometimes when you see him talking to Anne in particular, when he's being accosted and he goes into that fear place and that sort of overstressed place, and he starts to kind of tune out. He channels, to me at least, he channels Starman. Oh, you get it? Like, you get his mouth, like his jaw does that Starman thing. Right. And I just like trying to swallow a lot of spit or something. That's what I get out of him. Still great, just very Starman Bridges. That is funny. Yeah. It's very funny. Yeah. But he's fantastic. He channels, like I said, damage like nobody's business. And this film ends up being a real, I think, a wonderful showcase for his, mostly because he's so good at damage and so good is so natural on the microphone, and I know he was practiced at it, but so natural in that studio. He really nailed the shock jock, the shock jock move, being able to rack those tapes and to run those sounds and to run his board and to, very, very naturally. And it feels very naturally. And, I think it feels natural when you have actually worked a board and had to rack tapes and had to do that. You just realize he's got a lot of things going on and he's pushing all the right buttons. He actually looks really great. Yeah. Yeah, he does. And that's something that always cracks me up when I watch this movie, is how dated all of this is. Yeah. but it all works, like, the video spot with all the VHS tapes lined up on the shelves and him as the shock jock pulling those tapes and everything. When he's doing the thing when they're calling Lydia to tell her she's won the membership grand prize, and he's like trying to fast forward the cassette tapes in the boombox. That was awesome. But, I almost think that plays better now because it shows just how kind of anachronistic he could be. I imagine that if they remade this movie, they could remake it and have him use cassettes, and it would play well. like as a character thing, like, he is so lost that he's still using his cassettes. Yeah, it could work. It could work. All right. We have showered praise on Richard LaGravenese at some length. Do we want to talk about anything else for him? Just that this was really kind of his breakout screenplay, I think. It really kind of, he wrote it on spec, and it is something that kind of, I think Disney first latched onto it. And he was an early young writer when they're broke and don't have any money. They kind of do whatever you want them to, because they want some money, basically. And so Disney had the bright idea. I think this was I can't remember who it was. It was Katzenberg, I think it was the head at the time. All the people were like, well, we really see it as a big set piece sort of film. We want to have this big, the robbery, we want to be the big set piece. And so he had to go and rewrite it, and then he had this whole ending where it's like, as he said, it was like laser beams and roller skates and all this silly stuff, and it just, it wasn't working. And at the time, I guess James Cameron, they were talking about having him come in to direct it. Luckily, Disney realized that it wasn't working and that his original script was better, but they also realized that as good as the script was, it's not a film that they would ever make because it's so dark. And as one person told him, well, there are no homeless people in Jeffrey Katzenberg's world. So that kind of just tells you that, yeah. So luckily he found the right people to latch onto the project, because I think his script and Terry Gilliam's sensibilities really brought things out. But I mean, he's gone on and done a lot more of his own scripts and a lot of just script work. Hired gun sort of script writing for gosh, it's like 2 decades now.
He did immediately before The Fisher King. The script that had gotten produced was Rude Awakening, Cheech and Chong, and then he goes to The Fisher King. Talk about a tonal gap.
Yeah.
And then to another one of my favorite comedies, Dennis Leary comedy, The Ref, which was fantastic. Talk about quotable. That's a wonderful film. And then, man, he's just all over the place with major hits: Bridges of Madison County, Horse Whisperer, and he did the Decade Under the Influence that we've talked about before during our when was that? Right. That was the 70s, the 76 series.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
He's quite gifted.
Yeah, he really is, and I always when I see his name, I feel like there's some trust there. So.
Yeah. Okay, I've lost my tab.
Well, jumping back to the actors real quick, I just want to mention Kathy Najimy, who I think is hilarious.
Oh, you're right. Yes,
in her one scene. And this is, remember last week I made a mention of a line that I threw out there. I don't remember which episode I did, but episodes ago I threw out the line. A little Kathy Najimy reference. I can't tell you how often I quote this character. I am always saying it. It's like, I need something, Chevy Chasey,
Goldie Hawney, Chevy Chasey kind of thing.
Funny. I need to laugh.
With that comedian, he's on that show, hey, forgive me. Oh my gosh, that's brilliant.
Yes.
Ordinary peepholes?
Ordinary peepholes. Oh, man. Yeah.
That's great. You're totally right. I now, it's like the hot kiss at the end of a wet fist. It's all coming back to me now.
Yeah, I have no idea which episode that was, but it's one of those little references I threw in. Something funny, Katharine
Hepburn-y, Cary Grant-y kind of thing. That's great.
Good stuff.
Do we want to talk about the cinematographer, Roger Pratt?
Yeah, this it's a great film, and I think, again, tying into the Gilliamness of it, he does find a way to blend the fantasy and the reality of it. When the Red Knight appears, the lighting changes and it creates this much more fantastical look, and I think that's a smart way to go with that sort of thing. And contrasting that with the beautiful lighting when Perry and Lydia are on their date and they're having that conversation as they walk. I mean, the lighting is just gorgeous, and it makes you fall in love. And so he has this great way of playing the lighting throughout the film to really work in context of the story. I think it's really solid.
I think he is too. I think he makes, if you can say anything about the work, you can say he really creates the city. He lights the city well. He plays with the appropriate level of sort of striking shadow and striking lighting, particularly in some of the vigilante sequences, I think, that end up really showcasing more of the Gilliamness of the storytelling, the low angles with the high contrast lighting. I think we end up with a very Gilliam frame, even in the context of a very grounded city. I think it works very, very well.
Yeah, he adapts well to that kind of Gilliam, the Dutch angles, kind of just all the craziness that Gilliam throws in there, the dirtiness of things like when you go into the hospital and the walls, they're white walls, but they're all just filthy. he adapts well to that world that Gilliam kind of creates. So New York, it is New York. This castle is in New York. The park is in New York. But everything all of a sudden has this kind of slightly different feel, and it works.
It does work. It's funny. It made me think back to Tim Burton's Batman, and I hadn't made the connection that he actually did Tim Burton's Batman.
Oh, wow.
And so, in terms of lighting this city and obviously the set design, the kind of production design of the two are very, very different. But I got that same feeling of contrasts and, like you say, of just the way that he works the camera in and out of the facility of the city. I think it is very similar to me. I think I find it mildly amusing that those two films actually relate to one another.
Yeah,
at all.
And it is very funny that they the same. Well, and you look at his list of things; it's quite a variety of things.
Right.
But he did go do 12 Monkeys after this one with Gilliam, and so they did clearly have some good work together.
Right. Right.
Leslie Walker did the editing. Gilliam said that he really wanted to bring a female editor on board because he really wanted somebody who had that female sensibility, since he had two huge female roles that really needed to, make sure they're carrying the weight. And I think that was a smart decision. I think Leslie Walker does a great job with the editing in this film.
Absolutely. I think that's an interesting thing, and I've never made that connection that there is... in terms of editing, that's not true. I have made that connection, but I didn't make that connection here. Mm-hmm. That there is a particularly feminine editing style in contrast to a masculine editing style, and it's one of those things you can really feel it. I think you can really feel it in those sequences where Anne is dominating the scene. It has a much less kind of frenetic momentum to the cutting. Like you don't get that sense of velocity. You let her drive that sense of velocity rather than the movement of the cuts.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
You're right. Yeah. George Fenton was nominated for his music in this. I think he does a fantastic score. I love the music. The romantic music, the waltz music, the chase music when the Red Knight is coming after Perry. I think there's a great blend all through, and it all ties together really nicely. Not to mention, it ties together well with Sondheim's song, and it ties together well with the "I Like New York in June" song.
Yeah, all the way through. I don't have this soundtrack. Is this one that you find listen-toable?
I don't actually have this one, believe it or not.
I don't.
I don't either.
I choose not to. Now speak truth. I guess that'll give you something new to think about tonight, then.
I guess it will. Yeah. I feel so low now.
See how quickly I did that? Shake it up. Okay, Melbourne. We've talked about Melbourne about something, right? Did we? Have we talked about that? Oh, The Natural.
Yes, that's right.
I knew it.
That's right.
Oh, got to get up pretty early. I feel like we've sort of done credit to Melbourne's work as production designer on this film by just talking about how great he does the city. But the other set pieces that I find really engaging that I like so much, and maybe again these shine for me because of the performances that were going on in them. Like they really work as a total scene. The domicile, Perry's domicile, is a wonderful, wonderfully eclectic home. With all the candles, it works really, really well for me. And the apartment above the video store. I think Lydia says it. She says, I've always wanted to be in an apartment above a store. I know they're there, but I've never been in one. It's just this wonderful sequence. It makes you stop and look at the place, and I think that's a wonderful trick, and it sort of showcases the work that went into making this home, and I think it feels really very natural. It feels very well used, and
it feels right for the characters too.
Right.
And I think that's a key part of it is that Melbourne and Cindy Carr and their team of the production design, the art, the art direction of the whole film, they really get into these characters' heads, and in a way, they kind of become the characters themselves, trying to figure out what knickknacks are going to go well with, what would Anne have in her kitchen? What would Perry have in this corner of the basement? And I think that they work really well together to create this world, like you said, and not just those, but everywhere. Like just dressing the locations, that when you're like down by the river where Jack's going to kill himself, it's got that kind of rundown, trashy, just look, but it also just kind of, I don't know, it works well kind of for the place where he's rescued, and there's something about that works. And the hospitals too, that I already mentioned, with kind of this dirty walls that Gilliam loves so much.
Yes.
All through it.
It really comes it really shines in contrast to, again, the previous three Gilliam films. The production design is so grounded. Maybe that's why it is so striking, and that it feels so novel, that it's so not Gilliam. It feels really down to earth.
Well,
I can't believe we talked about him with Thief too, and it's a very similar thing, dressing the city. Yeah,
exactly. I think it's something that Gilliam creates these worlds so well that even when whether they're fantastical or whether they're grounded in a city like New York present day, it all has a feel to it, and you can get a sense of the dirt in the city, and you can get a vibe, and you can really you can tell that this project is completely connected to the world in which they're showing us.
Yeah, totally. So, okay. Anybody else you want to talk about before we talk numbers?
I think that is it. Oh, did we mention that Robin Williams was nominated for an Oscar for Best Actor in this film?
I don't think we mentioned that. I'm glad you brought that up. The only win, I think, right, was Mercedes Ruehl.
Yeah, Mercedes Ruehl is the only win. Robin Williams, Best Actor. Richard LaGravenese, Best Original Screenplay. Mel Bourne and Cindy Carr, Best Art Direction, Set Decoration. George Fenton, Best Original Score. They were all nominated. They did not win. This was the year of The Silence of the Lambs, so that was kind of the big sweep. Yeah. Anthony Hopkins won for playing Lecter, so he beat out Robin Williams, and there's something to be said for that, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So how did it do? Did this in some small part redeem the budget challenges that came from Munchausen?
Well, Munchausen did prove to be such a problem for Gilliam, which is unfortunate. I mean, immediately after, he was actually all set to direct The Watchmen. I don't know if you knew that, but he was going to do that with Joel Silver, but that the financing never came through, and a lot of that was because Munchausen
didn't trust him, right?
Yeah, they're like, no, we're not going to give you any money. And Joel Silver had just done Die Hard 2, and he overspent on that, and it didn't perform as well as everybody was hoping. So between those two films, everyone was like, well, we're not going to give you any money. And so it took a while, and Gilliam, went through kind of a depression trying to figure out what he's going to do, and he latched onto it. And I think that, he said that the three rules he had were: don't film in the U.S., don't film with a studio, and don't work on anyone else's script. He opted to break all of those rules because he really wanted to prove that he could do it, and he did. It really came through. The budget for this was $24 million, and I only found domestic numbers as far as how much the movie made. But even just domestically, it ended up making almost $42 million. And so I don't know what it made internationally, but just domestically, it turned a profit. And so that showed to everybody that, this is a guy who can make a movie. It's not just Munchausen after Munchausen after Munchausen. He actually can make a good project. And I think at the same time, it also showed Gilliam that, hey, it's not so bad working in the States. It's not so bad making a script that somebody else wrote. When he finds the right people who have his sensibilities, like Richard LaGravenese, that they actually can all help each other make a better project that ends up making money at the box office. And I think that was a great turning point for him. So, all told, the film ended up making adjusted profit per finished minute of about $222,000. So,
not a bad return.
Not too bad.
Not too bad. All right, let's flick chart it.
Let's do it.
Head over to flickchart.com/thenextreel, and you can find our stack rankings of all of our favorite films, and we will see. You should join if you haven't joined. Join up with the Flick Chart, and then friend us. Whatever the word is, you should do that with us. Like us, right. Friend us, whatever, and then we'll see if our top lists match your top list. That would be great.
Ooh. All right, here we go. The Fisher King or Pete's new favorite movie, Knowing.
Oh my God, that's going to be every week for a while, isn't it?
I don't know. Probably not. I think that more and more films will end up beating Knowing. So it'll.
The Fisher King, please.
Yeah, yes, The Fisher King or Forrest Gump.
I will take The Fisher King.
That's a tricky one. I actually think I would go Fisher King. I think I would.
Wow.
I know. The Fisher King or No Country for Old Men?
I will go The Fisher King.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I'm torn on that one, man. That's a tough one.
I am not torn at all, if that helps.
All right. Well, since you're not torn at all and I'm torn, I'll go with you. Since okay. I feel like this is one where I really could go either way. It's very much a mood thing.
Okay. The
Fisher King or Brazil? Oh, there you go. You know which way I fall on
Brazil.
This one.
I would go with Brazil. And I feel like we should. Well, we'll save it. But I want to read the Blot comment for the week on Brazil.
Oh, okay.
When we finish.
The Fisher King or Aliens?
Oh. I mean, please. Aliens.
You said that, and I'm like, what? Oh, please, what? Which way is he going on this one? Yeah, I could go to the Fisher King, but I think I will go Aliens with you. Fisher King or The French Connection?
The Fisher King.
I actually agree. I wasn't sure I was going to, but The Fisher King or The Matrix?
All right, now it's your turn. I'm torn. I am genuinely torn.
They both represent just such different things for me.
I think I'm going to have to go with The Matrix.
That's the hard part. Yeah, I am going to have to go with The Matrix too. Yeah. Number 15. There you go.
There you go. That feels good. That feels about right.
Yeah, it feels close. Yeah, it feels. I feel like it's pretty good being up there.
Yeah.
It's in our top 20.
I hope the good Ben Lott jumps in on this film. I'd be very curious what he thinks of it, especially coming from his comment on Brazil. The Blot score of the week was, I'm going to judge this as a kind of, I was about to say middle finger, but that's not what I mean. You know that Roman thing where they do the thumbs up, thumbs down, and I guess you go right in the middle, That's what I meant. It's sort of a middling Roman vote. We don't go to the Lions, but we don't get to eat tonight. Just thought I'd throw in my 2 cents, Ben says, since it's kind of become a tradition for me to do so, and a wonderful tradition that is. I liked some aspects of Brazil, but I just didn't get it. So much of it flew over my head, and that took me completely out of the film. Seems like one that might benefit from multiple viewings. Not bad, just confusing. Glad you love it. I found that a really interesting comment because I don't think of it, since I've seen the movie so many times, I don't think of it as a first viewing experience. I can totally see why he would be confused on a first viewing. Yeah,
and it really did kind of take me... I had to take a step back as well and go, what was that first viewing like? Was it really confusing for me too? And because I really can't quite remember if I was just like confused by the story or like, what the heck is going on in this crazy world that Terry Gilliam is creating here? I don't remember, but it definitely is eye-opening. It is. Something like you said that we just haven't thought of, like put ourselves into that perspective in years, decades.
Yeah. It's that question. Do you remember where you were the first time you saw Brazil? I don't consider there was a first time that I saw Brazil. It has always been, and it always will be.
Wow.
Well, I look forward to the block comment on The Fisher King and see how this holds up in his Gilliam score. So, fun times. Where do we go from here? I think you already spoiled it.
Yeah, I spoiled it right at the beginning. We're going to be finishing up our Gilliam series next week with none other than 12 Monkeys.
I'm looking forward to this film because I have not seen this. Of all of the Gilliam films we've talked about, this is the one I've seen the least.
Interesting. Okay.
And so I think it's fair to say right now I have no opinion on this film.
Well, I know we saw it together a time or two.
Yeah, I know we did, and I remember pieces of it, but it's 1995. Yeah. We saw this in the theater together.
Very likely.
I'm sure of it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this is going to be awesome. Wrapping it up next week, and I think that's all we've got. It was a good talk. I gotta go to bed.
The answer: 2 dwarves and a melon.
What's great about that is you couldn't hold in the laugh.
I couldn't.
You couldn't hold in the laugh.
It's so nonsensical. Like, why would I even say that?
All right. My review from Amazon is titled "The Worst Movie Ever Made" by Roger Ebert. Jim Pesci. This is from December 8th, 1998. He wrote this review. The Fisher King is a disappointing myriad of chaotic film sequences, uninspiring characters, and a deliberately meaningless title. It mixes random delusion fantasy sequences in a pale attempt to feign creativity. Viewers seeking a sensible, straightforward plot will be sorely disappointed. Viewers who prefer creative fantasy movies will likely be insulted by this poor attempt to fill their needs. The Fisher King's only value is that of a poor abstract painting. People can look at it and pretend to each other that they, quote, understand the deeper meaning. This film is about as deep as a cookie sheet. I read these. I'm like, they didn't see the same movie. Like, I think he may have watched it on mute.
Maybe.
Didn't get the story. What?
They pretty much spell it out.
They spell it out. They tell a 2-minute monologue that talks about why the movie is called what it is. The main set piece at the end of the film is finding the Grail from the story about the title. How do you miss that? What's yours?
Mine is by Andy Williamson. No redeeming value whatsoever. 1 star. I nearly hated this film. I am a former film student, current film lover, reader, researcher, and all-around film nerd, but I just did not connect one iota with this dismal movie. I love Brazil and 12 Monkeys and enjoy much of Terry Gilliam's other work. But what in the heck is this? There is good weird, Brazil, and then bad weird, of which this film is one example. The story seems tied together in only the loosest meaning of the word. The relationships and coincidences just had me saying, come on. The film seems rambling and disjointed, maddeningly so. I also found the murder scene to be horribly jarring and unnecessarily grotesque. Yeah, that's my idea of a good time. So blame me if you will, but this film is garbage. I didn't have the opportunity to be engaged in it. It bored me so. Robin Williams in the buff? Ugh. Okay. Not my idea of great filmmaking. I kept searching for some greater point to tie everything together, and I didn't find it. Granted, I only saw the film once, but if it is so bad that I have no desire to ever see it again, even for the sake of figuring it out, then a 1-star rating is more than appropriate. Sorry, folks. This ain't what it's cracked up to be. I don't mind being depressed by a film if there is some point to it all. But here?
goodness. Again, watched it on mute. I'm almost sure that that's what's happening.
Ugh. Or maybe they're watching it in reverse.
It's possible. I think next week we can't do 1-star reviews. These are too downer, too much of a downer.
They are. Man, people are harsh.
They really are.
I just
Although
don't get it.
the response, the Bone Man responded to the comment that you just read, and he writes a really great response. He outlines the whole thing for Andy.
That makes it so much better.
Yeah, it makes it so much better. He did it, about 7 years too late, but he did it.
But at least he did it.
Oh, I take it back. 11 years. He did it 11 years
right.
later. He responded.
Andy, it is hard to believe that we have been having in-depth weekly conversations about movies since 2011.
You are telling me. Producing this show week after week requires a ton of work behind the scenes. If you'd like to help support our efforts, one easy way is by using our Originals page when shopping for books and movies that we've covered.
Just visit thenextreel.com/originals. Your purchases made through our links give us a small commission at no extra cost to you and allow us to keep having these great discussions.
I love The Next Reel Season 4. Do you know why?
I don't. Why?
Because we got to talk about my favorite movie, Terry Gilliam's Brazil.
That's not even an adaptation.
No, but it was such a great part of our great Terry Gilliam series, and a few others in that series were adaptations, like The Adventures of Baron Munchausen, adapted from Raspi's stories, and La Jetée, which inspired 12 Monkeys.
Oh, right. And for our Man with No Name trilogy, we saw how Sergio Leone's A Fistful of Dollars was basically stolen from Kurosawa's Yojimbo.
We added Labor Day to our Jason Reitman series, adapted from Joyce Maynard's novel.
Oof, there's one we'll always regret.
Our big Stephen King series covered adaptations like The Shining, Cujo, Christine, and Stand By Me, great horror and coming-of-age tales.
Another Coen Brothers adaptation, too. We got to talk about how they turned Homer's The Odyssey into Oh, Brother, Where Art Thou?
For our holiday series, we did The Bishop's Wife and The Poseidon Adventure.
And who could forget seeing Alec Guinness in the adaptation of Kind Hearts and Coronets during our series dedicated to him.
We really need to do more of his films.
Truly.
We had our first film noir series with classics like Double Indemnity, Detour, and Out of the Past.
And our black and white cinematography of James Wong Howe series with The Thin Man, Sweet Smell of Success, Seconds, and King's Row. So many adaptations.
Oh, you're not kidding. Dive deeper into these originals and more at thenextreel.com/originals. Every book you buy helps support our show.
Get the full list at thenextreel.com/originals and start reading today.